A very good afternoon to everybody who's present here. So we are starting this session on revolutionizing healthcare in India, the future of MedTech and innovation. And today we are honored to be joined by four remarkable leaders whose work spans around the world and across disciplines. And we are at the intersection of technology, entrepreneurship, and healthcare innovations in this session. So without much ado, I would like to jump on to the questions, which I would keep pretty open to the panel. And just for the interest in time, we'll try to keep our answers short so that we can answer more questions. So each of you come from a very distinct background. We have venture capital, digital pathology, and neurointervention. So what has prompted you to be a part of the India-US corridor, and how has your journey evolved ever since?
Okay, let me get started. So hi everyone, pleasure to be here. So I am now in my 35th year at Stanford, so I've had an interest in MedTech through a combination of engineering, medicine, and business. So for me, it's been a logical sort of combination. The interest in India started in 2007 when we were asked to propose a program to the government of India, and that became the Stanford India Biodesign program, which we've been running for the last 18 years. So that was really the start of my interest in focusing on MedTech in India. Our focus really was to train MedTech innovators in India, and we started off with one single location at AIIMS in Delhi, along with IIT Delhi, and that's increased now to 11 different centers across India.
Thank you, Raj. So Nandini, do you want to?
Is this working?
Yes.
Yeah, first of all, I just wanted to say what an honor and pleasure it is to be included in this wonderful discussion. And a major congratulations to Professor Anurag Meral and his phenomenal SciPEC team. So fabulous, and look forward to building on the momentum you all have created. So to answer your question, I come from a family that has spent the past 100 years working in India. The Sitaparai Hospital in Uttar Pradesh was started by my Bade Nana ji. And what we wanted to do as my sister and I, Priya, who I started Setu together, we wanted to see how we could focus on health equity, gender equity, and economic equity under the not-for-profit. And from a professional standpoint, we wanted to see how we could have a larger impact on the global stage, with India playing a critical role along with America. And I think in America, when you support a project, you are working with 50 million plus people, but when you put the two countries together, it's close to 2 billion. So the footprint is much larger, and that's what drives us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nandini. Over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm Abhi Gholap. Being in the MedTech field for the last 18-20 years, after being an alumnus of IIT Mumbai and Stanford Graduate School of Business, MedTech has been very close, and especially, it has an opportunity to, let entrepreneurs build the products than only focusing on the services. And when you are trying to build the products, there is an IP, and because of there is an IP, you can always differentiate yourself well in the market. As a part of the initiative that we are doing right now as my third startup, in my earlier startups also it was always associated with Indian market. But as a third startup, what we are trying to do is to replace microscope from this earth, because microscopes are there for the last 200 years. And interestingly, in the last 15 years or 20 years, you see that most of the things have changed, transformed. Your laptops, your cars, your cell phones, your watches, your glasses, everything got transformed. But microscope possibly people kept on using for several hundred years, and that's because it's a very simple to use device. And if you see the way India has positioned itself so far, pretty great in terms of the services industry, but very poor in terms of the products or the intellectual property. And I think, the whole idea here is that how do we bring more objectivity in the pathology industry, because pathology industry relies heavily on the microscopes. And that is where when 67 to 70% of the healthcare expenditures are controlled by pathology, because pathology industry is the first gatekeeper to do the diagnosis. So that's where, how do you replace a microscope with a more objective device which is more consistent and repeatable? So that's kind of the whole aim here, from the perspective of the women's healthcare, which we'll eventually discuss. But that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abhi. You see the level of innovators we have in the session. Who would think of replacing a microscope in the pathology world? Thank you very much. Shashwat, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shashvat Desai. I am a physician, and I stumbled upon entrepreneurship. And to answer your question about why US-India corridor for me, I was born and raised in Bombay. I went to medical college in Bombay, came to the US to specialize in training. And over the last 10 years, we've seen that brain stroke has gone from a diagnosable condition to a diagnosable and treatable condition. Since last 8 to 9 years, we have the ability to reverse paralysis caused by a brain stroke. But the biggest problem we are facing today is that we have a scientifically proven treatment which works, saves lives, prevents disability. But only 2% of Indians get that treatment, as compared to almost every American has access to that treatment. So we were forced to, in a way, start a company to build a product which is better than existing products and also more democratized, more affordable. And that's why we started Gravity Medical about 4 years ago. And that's my reason to, come from the healthcare side into entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Shashwat. And I think you've brought up a very important point about access to healthcare. And that would lead to my first question to the panel, which is access to quality healthcare in India, especially in rural and underserved areas, is a persistent challenge and has been for decades. So how have your respective organizations approached this issue, and what scalable solutions do you see using the US-India corridor? So whoever wants to take that first.
Okay, I'll go with this, especially since you mentioned about the rural part of India. So I will give you a very interesting example here. There is a cervical cancer, which is where, if you see where India rates, India is known to be the number 2 in the cervical cancer, with 20% deaths that happens globally, happens in India. With 25% of the female that get detected on the cervical cancer happens in India. Why? Because there is no early stage screening that happens in India. So with 35 years and above, as the female population in India, there are 383 million women population in India, and there is only 1.2% of the testing that happens in India for the cervical cancer. Now, one of the biggest challenge is that when they are doing something like a pap smears, or when they are doing something like a cervical screening programs, then since the screening programs happen just 1.2%, it means that the female are not even going for any screenings. So they actually encounter, or they get into the cancerous situations so often because there is no early screening and there is no early detection, and that's why not many of the female population get detected. And that is where, when you are looking at the female population in the country like US, where because of the insurance mandates, there are some protocols that get implemented. Unlike that in India, even in the bigger cities, not many female population get screened. And forget about the rural India, because in the rural India, females are not interested to go to the hospitals. And then the pathologists who are supposed to do this testing, they are not interested to go to the smaller cities or the smaller villages. And because of that, introducing a technological solution, which can be a replacement to a human pathologist, which can work on the digital images and generate a solution, became one of the important aspects. And that's what we just demonstrated, which was inaugurated at the hands of Prime Minister of India in collaboration with Reliance Jio, where we can actually do the screening of the women population for the cervical programs, so that only those female patients who are detected abnormal can now be called to the bigger cities for the further follow-up. And then the rest of 95 to 98% who are anyway normal should be let go home, so that the next time after 2 years or 3 years when they come back, there is a less probability of they developing the cancer.
Thank you, Abhi. And Nandini, you would like to add something to
Yes, because it's very cogent. First of all, totally agree with everything what you said. And the rural population, not only in India, but even America, has very large white spaces. Because physicians who have spent so many years training are reluctant to go and spend their time. And so my sister Priya and I spent some time in Alabama, and what we found, it takes them about 3 hours to get to a clinic. Now, going back to India, and specifically, there are several things that we've been engaged with in rural, and especially with women's health. And that's why I wanted to take a page from what my fellow panelists have said. We are focusing on early breast cancer detection. And earlier, when you had asked the question about the background, I was amiss in not answering it. I am a scientist by training, and with a PhD in imaging background. And then I worked in a semiconductor think tank using my imaging background. So I bring the biotech and semiconductor background to the table. And then I was sent to Stanford to launch 2 products. And I was chief business officer of a company and then venture capitalist. Having said that, and having invested in 14 proprietary technology, in the case of rural, those don't apply. Because you have neither the clinics nor the woman power or manpower to take care of the patients. So what we are doing, just because you have a hammer doesn't mean you go looking for a nail, right? Just because we have technical background doesn't mean that's what we take to the rural area. So we partnered with Tata Cancer Center, Dr. Bardway, who's a world-renowned breast cancer specialist and the director of Tata Cancer Center, did a 150,000 women study. And he found that if you can teach women how to do clinical breast examination, so no technology needed, you can reduce mortality by 30%. So very happy to share that Setu has launched both in Uttar Pradesh and in Karnataka early breast cancer detection in rural area, training women to help women do this. And we're very lucky we have the MP from Devariya, because that's where we have launched, in Devariya, and he's helping us, Shashank Maniji. So here's one example of how we can work with women in the rural area in early breast cancer detection. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nandini. Yes, Rajiv.
So our program has led to the formation of about 12 or 13 companies, and a lot of them are focused on providing better products and services in rural settings. The reason that's sort of come about is that all of our fellows that are part of our program, they're all from India, they're all Indian nationals, and part of our program involves needs finding, looking for problems, and we did a lot of the needs finding in rural settings within the public health infrastructure within India, which explains why the products and services that have come out of this program are based on the needs of rural India. But just to cite one example, what was very clear is that a lot of the population's in rural India, but there's a shortage of physicians, nurses, et cetera, hospitals in those locations. So we're seeing a birth of technologies which are connected, which allow de-skilling or reduce skill, require less skill from the provider. So an example might be looking in the ear, for example, or looking in the eyes instead of requiring a ENT surgeon or an ophthalmologist to be there for that assessment. We're just using technology to, again, look into these parts of the body and take that information, send it to the cloud, let it be read by AI, let it be overread by specialists, and then let that diagnosis then come back to the rural setting. So I think from our perspective, the use of technology is going to enable better access and better care ultimately for these providers, for these folks in rural settings.
Thank you so much, Raj. So we've seen Abhi and Nandini has talked about survival and breast cancer, and Raj has talked about the doctor-nurse to patient ratio in India and where the struggle is. We also know that India is the diabetes capital of the world, and we often talk about the out-of-pocket expenditure that is associated around the complications of these killer diseases that India has so prevalently. So associated with that, we often see that funding is often a major hurdle for healthcare innovation of cross-border ventures. So whether as an investor, entrepreneur, or scientist, how have you navigated for the funding landscape? And what advice do you have for emerging MedTech innovators who are interested to be part of this US-India corridor? Shashvat, do you want to take that?
I think I can take a stab at that. And to give you a background, I have zero experience in how to raise money. I've never been to a business school, not yet. If you're a doctor, you spend a lot of time in the hospital, and you have these blinders on, and you only know about medicine. So in 2021, when we began the company with the goal to make much better brain stents for stroke treatment and also to make them affordable, we had to start from scratch. We had to raise some money to file for intellectual property. We had to incorporate a company in the US, create a company in India. And the way we decided to raise money was we followed a plan to not go to any VC, not go to any venture capital company, because we felt that the incentive which drives typical venture capital investment is completely at odds with our goal to provide affordable treatment. But at the same time, it is a business. It needs to be sustainable. There's no point having a product which can't serve the market for a long time to come. So we had to bridge these two, at odds, of trying to raise money, but also making it a business which serves a market which is not the typical high-value US market. So we essentially raise money from doctors. We have assembled a group of more than 80 physicians who are like-minded, who could contribute financially, who can contribute with their time, advice, expertise, and that has actually got us through a stage where we have 2 Class C devices approved in Southeast Asia, on the verge of approval in India and European Union. So I think while there are known traditional funding strategies out there for MedTech companies, but it might be worth considering finding a like-minded group of people who may support you in your journey, at least early on, until you can grow from that stage.
Thank you so much, Nandini. Abhi, we'll come to you. Yes.
So it's a very, very important question, because we all are looking to have next generation of innovative solutions. And I feel very grateful for the opportunity that Professor Anurag Meral and Professor Raj Doshi have provided through Stanford Biodesign, because Setu has been working with them and has taken a page from the Stanford Biodesign and seeing how we can support the entrepreneurs in India. And the entrepreneurs in India, yes, there's an entire spectrum where one can work with them in mentoring them, whether it is looking at how do you scale the company and a whole host of areas. But having access to global money, funding, is one of the most important things that we collectively from Silicon Valley can take to India. And it has been it's been a very essentially critical journey working with them and working with the entrepreneurs in India. And I also wanted to add one more thing. For example, when you said about diabetes, that's an excellent example, because both US and India are facing that challenge. And just like we have the continuous glucose monitor, we're having more technologies coming to the table that are assisting the patients. And this is where if India can make a lower cost version or another generation of what continuous glucose monitor or those kind of solutions are providing in either diabetes or in other areas, then it's easier for them to attract money from US, because especially in today's climate, where making America great again, making India great again, manufacturing in your backyard is so important. So we can split the baby and see where does it make more sense to have manufacturing in India versus manufacturing in America, and then put that collage together. Then it makes it easier to raise money externally from India. And we raise money from Taiwan primarily because they have a lot of strength in engineering in multiple areas, but they would like to bring those engineering strengths in the MedTech, biotech arena, and hence we could raise money from them. So these are certain examples. Thank you.
Thank you, Nandini. Yes, sir.
So I would say that raising the money is not really a challenge. And the reason I said that is because my first startup, we raised around $35 million. That company got acquired by Roche Diagnostics for $100 million. Then I started my second company. We raised around $14 million. The company got acquired by Becton Dickinson at $75 million. So with these two startup experience that I have in building the MedTech, and as Mr. Agrawal just said in a panel before, that, think global. I think that's the key part here, because if you're really thinking about a product which can be globally acceptable, then raising the money is not really a challenge, because there are people who are ready to put the money. And investment market is all about a herds mentality. So if you have got like somebody, first person is investing, others will come and invest. The challenge is that how do you return that money back to the investors with good returns? And that's where I think the product differentiation plays a significant role. In my first two startups, I had never raised money from India. But now in my third startup, I'm raising money also from India. So we have raised $43 million so far, $43.5 million so far for these digital pathology initiatives that we are taking. And I'm very happy to tell you that $17 million from that has come from an investor in India. So the thinking process in India is like significantly changed, not because there are now almost 800 MedTech startups in India with a potential of almost generating $50 billion of revenues by 2030. So the investment landscapes are very clear. People are there to put money. There are also, the middle class definition of India has now really widened. And because of that, there are a lot of requirement that they have in terms of having the medical devices at the fingertips to do the diagnosis at home. So from all this perspective, I think MedTech definitely sounds like a good opportunity on the horizon for people to go and invest and entrepreneurs to go and do some good innovation so that it can still stand well on a global impact.
Right, Raj.
If I could add to that. So we've worked with maybe 30 or 40 companies at this point, and I'd say for first-time entrepreneurs, it is difficult to raise money. The first set of funds coming in typically might come in from the Department of Biotechnology or BioRac. So there is some early money in the form of grants that's available. Thereafter, there's a bit of a significant challenge actually raising angel money, and ultimately institutional venture capital is fairly limited, especially if you start talking about hardware. Right, so that's been a challenge, and some of the companies have tried to raise money from outside of India, and that's actually a major challenge beyond that. But in the end, I think what's needed is the following. So it's actually ultimately these entrepreneurs need purchase orders from the public health infrastructure within India. They need the states to to issue purchase orders to purchase their products and services. Once that happens, then the investor money will flow from private capital. But until then, it continues to be a slog for most companies.
I have to agree with Professor Doshi. I think we congratulate you that it has been easy for you to raise money, and I agree with you that exits are critically important. Just raising money is not. So I've made 14 investments. I've had 13 exits. I've sold 9 companies. I took 2 companies public. All of that is fine. We are sitting in Silicon Valley. It makes it easier. But when we go to India, I think Professor Doshi is absolutely right. It's not that easy. And he's also absolutely right on health being a state subject. Having the engagement of the state government in raising their hands and saying, these are the 5 areas which are critically challenging for our state, and we will support the entrepreneurs if they show a promising solution early on. I think it's very important. Unless we have those policy changes, it is not fair to the entrepreneurial community in India to be able to get the leg up that other places have.
Yeah, the entrepreneurs are getting hammered. It's typically the hero founder that, especially when there's a lack of working capital because payments are delayed, it's the founders, the CEO basically, that is taking out the loans which have a personal guarantee attached to them. And that is almost ubiquitous across the entrepreneurs that we work with.
I think one point I'd like to add is that before this panel, we saw multiple different panels about the Indian startup ecosystem going from tech to environmental science, defense. I think one key differentiation in healthcare is the funnel keeps becoming smaller and smaller. the number of VCs who fund tech is much more than the number of VCs who fund healthcare. Within healthcare, they're mostly health tech VCs. Within that, only a minority funds MedTech. And it's important to identify and not take investment unless you understand that they understand that this journey is a long journey. You are not going to make and break things. You're not going to see an ROI in 2 years or 4 years. Most pharma or MedTech product cycles are very long. There are regulatory compliances which are huge. It's the most regulated field on the planet. And the risks are also high because you're dealing with human patients. It's highly sensitive. So your investment partner should have that understanding that there is going to be a long life cycle to this. The returns will come, but you have to wait.
So whether it is money flowing from the Silicon Valley to India or using money that is in India, standing here in 2025 today, I think we are talking about collaboration, which is the key theme. So whether between countries, institutions, or sectors, can you share a story or a lesson from a cross-border or cross-disciplinary partnership that significantly influenced any of your work? Yes.
I can give an example. So we are building a stent which goes inside the artery in the brain. And the job of that stent is to remove a blood clot which is blocking the artery during a stroke. And when we remove the blood clot out, blood starts flowing again. And the patient who had paralysis, you can reverse the paralysis. So if you look at this treatment, it's a magical treatment. A patient comes in with paralysis, we remove the blood clot, patient starts walking again. If any of you see this, you will think this is outstanding, and it truly is. And that's why I like to do it. But to make this one stent, which is just 4 millimeter by 40 millimeters, there's a whole lot of research and development which goes into it. And to answer your question about collaboration and how we actually made it cost effective, is before any device goes into the human body, you have to do a test called as biocompatibility test. And this test tells you if that product, when goes inside the body and comes in contact with blood, is it safe or not? And this is a regulatory requirement by every agency in the world, US FDA, India CDSCO, EU, any FDA. So since we were trying to make a cost-effective device, we wanted to keep our R&D costs as low as possible, but ensuring safety. So we went shopping around the world to look at where can we do biocompatibility in a manner which is good, and the report we get is acceptable across the world. So I went to labs in the US and they quoted us $350,000 to do biocompatibility for a stent. I went to a lab in Israel, they told me $200,000. I went to a lab in Ahmedabad, they said $47,000. And they all give the same report. But to manage this ability to find the correct lab whose report will be valid and accepted across the world, we had to really collaborate with stakeholders in the US, confirm with the FDA, they will accept that report, go back to India, make sure they will file the report in the manner and format we want them to, and we were able to do that, and that report has been accepted. So this is a good example of how you can decentralize R&D to your benefit and for cost and time efficiency.
Thank you, Shashwat. Do you want to add anything to that, Nandini?
You know, given the paucity of time, there are multiple examples, but I really like your next question. I'm waiting for that.
Okay. So we'll move on to the next question. So what role do you think, or do you believe the US-India corridor can play in shaping the global MedTech landscape? And not just as a market, but as an innovator or exporter of cutting-edge healthcare technology?
Okay, so I think that's a very, very important question. As we know, US and India have celebrated partnership going back many decades, but the trust that the two democracies have today has never been higher. And in any partnership, any collaboration, whether it's multi-sectorial, whether it's multinational, or what have you, the trust aspect is very important, and that's there. The second thing in partnership is very important, that both parties need to have their whatever they find important in that partnership met. So it should be shared, it should be win-win, and it should not be that the win-win is that I win and then I win some more. So US-India brings that to the table. The third thing that US-India brings is that we have talent and technology in both sides, and this is what I'm really excited about, having a background in both semiconductor and biotech, medtech, life sciences. As we all know, semiconductor have become ubiquitous. So now the automobile industry is actually wheels on semiconductor. And more and more industries are relying on semiconductor. And MedTech is also going to be very much reliant on that, just as AI is going to be pervasive. And I think because of the coming together of deep technology along with health tech, the solutions that are going to come out of these two countries working together will be pretty phenomenal. An example, in also serving the rural area, like distant surgeries through robotic, or the imaging, or the ability to read images just because of the three-dimensionality and all the data that we'll be having. And both countries share a strong capability of having data. So in the case of India, I think it's coming up to speed as to how to make sure that that data is utilized in a manner that it is statistically significant. America has had the history of making that happen. So the two coming together and the regulatory processes being shared and better understood will allow us to have that happen. But I think it's a very exciting time in the two countries coming together, and I think a lot more solutions will come out.
Thank you so much, Nandini. And with that, I think we'll open the floor to questions from the audience. If any of you would like to ask. Yes. Oh, it's on your table. Yeah, it's on this table.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, this is Sharanya. My question is for Shashvat. So you spoke about the stunt that's used in the brain. My father is a stroke survivor, and this happened about 17 years ago. And even today, he walks with a limp on his left leg. So I'm curious, is this stunt available? And for what happened 17 years ago, can this do something? He had an ischemic attack and a partial thrombocyte.
It's a good question. The stent is available right now. It can be used to treat acute patients. So if someone has a stroke right now, within 24 hours of stroke onset, you can go in, open the blockage, and reverse the paralysis. And this treatment is extremely powerful. It did not exist 17 years ago. But if someone gets the same disease right now, we can do a lot more for that patient today. And I think a few numbers are important to understand as to why this is so important. Every year in India, we have 14 lakh or 1.4 million brain strokes every year. Average age of brain stroke in India is 54. Average age of brain stroke in the US is 72. So by definition, we are susceptible to strokes in large numbers and at much younger age than compared to the West. Of the 14 lakh strokes, 4 lakh patients, 400,000 require this surgery to be done to reverse their paralysis in India. In 2024, this treatment was only offered to 4,500 patients. So 3,95,000 patients approximately, or 395,000 patients remain paralyzed because we are not able to offer a life-saving treatment which we know works. So that's what we are trying to solve.
Thank you. We have time for another question.
Yes. My name is Karthik. I work in semiconductors with interest in policy. So I understand the mode for MedTech, product innovation, etc., etc.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you that well.
I understand the mode for product innovation in MedTech. My question is, why can't India be like a medical tourism hub, exporting services like we did in software, given the fact that there are many southern states where the number of doctors per 1,000 individuals is beyond the benchmark suggested by UN, and fairly most of the hospitals are now corporatized with well-structured, one-stop all care solutions. So what is hindering such situation, given the fact US, UK, most of the hospitals have expensive insurances, huge wait times, and many Indians here do go to India to get their surgeries done?
Should I take that?
Yeah, sure.
Very briefly, and I'm sure other panelists would like to add to that, I think India is already doing that. There's always room for expanding. COVID did not help the situation because nobody could travel. So the thread has been picked up. And also there are insurance policies, at least in this country. So if you go and get treated overseas, and then that it could have ramifications when you come back. And so there are multiple areas that can be ironed out, but I think India is already working strongly towards being a hub for medical tourism.
I'd like to add that India is a leader in medical tourism already. We are the fourth or the fifth largest medical tourism market in the world. We are facing some competition from English-speaking countries which can offer medical tourism like we do. Also, we are the largest exporter of medical services in terms of doctors as well. 1 in 5 US doctors are of Indian origin with an Indian passport. So India exports a lot. And to add to the US-India corridor, since there are so many Indian physicians in the US, that corridor can be very innovative because they already have connections with hospitals in India to do trials and innovation.
Thank you very much. So with that, do you want to ask your question? Okay, that's the last one we are taking because we are running out of time. So if you could make it really quick.
Hi, thank you so much. It was a very nice panel discussion. There was a lot of talk about thinking for the global systems. So I just want to talk specifically about MedTech. How is it possible to actually sort of escalate it to a global solution, considering a lot of different regulatory compliances in different countries, lots of different democracies, different socioeconomic factors, and so on?
Is the question, can a product in India be made for global population? And the answer is yes, and we're seeing that with several of our companies. Several of our companies have each treated or diagnosed about 20 million lives each, and those populations are in India, but also 20 different countries. So no, the answer is India is coming. It will be a global hub for MedTech, and it's already here.
Yeah, I think we're very bullish on that, actually. I think that trend is very much there, and we believe in that trend. And I think the AI and semiconductor will only help it. Thank you.
And on that positive note, I think we'll call a close to this session. Thank you very much to all the panelists.